Your daily news summary starts now, only on NNC, Neural Newscast.
Broadcasting from the Neural Newscast newsroom, I'm Andrew Lindbeck. It's August 15th, 2025. On this day in 1947, India gained independence from British rule as the Dominion of India was established, marking the end of nearly 200 years of British colonial governance and the birth of a sovereign nation. Environmental challenges and solutions ahead. Global UN talks aimed at a plastics treaty conclude without agreement after contentious negotiations and a rejected draft. Here's Samuel Green with more.
Global talks to craft a United Nations plastics treaty end without a deal in Geneva. After 9 days and an overnight session, delegates reject an updated draft from Chair Luis Valls Valdivieso of Ecuador. Many say it fails the mandate to end plastic pollution across the full life cycle of plastics. The closing plenary starts at 6:30 a.m. Friday, more than 15 hours late, and ends just after 9 a.m. Norway's lead negotiator, Andreas Bjelland-Eriks, says, "We are truly sad." Talks will continue, extending a contentious process that began August 4th.
Negotiators from nearly 180 countries failed to agree on limits to plastic production or bans on hazardous additives, stalling progress. Here's Stephen Summers with more.
Global talks on a United Nations plastics treaty end without a deal. Negotiators from nearly 180 countries wrap up days of meetings unable to agree on limits to plastic production or bans on hazardous chemicals. Major oil and plastics producers resist caps, while many island and coastal nations push for strong curbs. The split blocs draft language on binding targets, chemical controls, and product design standards. Health advocates warn microplastics and toxic additives threaten people and wildlife. Delegates plan more sessions this year, but timelines for a final treaty now slip. This is Stephen Summers for Neural Newscast.
Political shifts and debates ahead. Washington, D.C. files suit seeking to block the federal government from taking control of the city's police authority. Here's Cassandra Joyce with more.
Washington, D.C. sues the federal government to block the Trump administration's attempted takeover of the city's police. The lawsuit, filed today, challenges an operation that strips authority from D.C. Police Chief Pamela Smith and overrides local sanctuary policies. The Justice Department's plan asserts federal control over investigations and personnel decisions. City leaders call it an unconstitutional power grab that violates home rule and the 1973 District of Columbia Self-Government Act. Public safety requires local accountability, Mayor Muriel Bowser says. The case tests the limits of federal power over the nation's capital and local policing.
Another account of the DAC lawsuit highlights constitutional claims against the Justice Department's asserted authority. Here's Daniel Grove with more.
Washington, D.C. sues the federal government to block the Trump administration's attempted takeover of the city's police. The lawsuit, filed today, challenges an operation that strips authority from D.C. Police Chief Pamela Smith and overrides local sanctuary policies. The Justice Department's plan asserts federal control over investigations and personnel decisions. City leaders call it an unconstitutional power grab that violates home rule and the 1973 District of Columbia Self-Government Act. Public safety requires local accountability, Mayor Muriel Bowser says. The case tests the limits of federal power over the nation's capital and local policing. This is Daniel Grove for Neural Newscast.
A global perspective on today's events. Hurricane Erin strengthens into a storm approaching Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, bringing heavy rain and flooding risks. Here's Monica Kellen with more.
Hurricane Erin forms mid-morning Friday as it nears Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Forecasters say the storm brings heavy rain, dangerous flooding, and possible landslides across steep terrain. Erin swirls through the northeastern Caribbean and gathers strength over warm waters. Projections show a track toward Florida, with the system likely accelerating before curving away from the U.S. mainland. Residents in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands face the earliest impacts today and tonight. Officials urge caution, emphasizing flash flooding risks and rapidly changing conditions. Stay alert for local watches and warnings.
A former Afghan allied with British troops fears deportation after a UK data breach exposed his family's details. Here's Laura Navarro with more.
A former Afghan Special Forces member who worked with British troops faces deportation from the UK. His son says the family could be killed if returned to Afghanistan. Documents indicate the man served in an elite unit that partnered with the UK during the war. The family's details were exposed in a UK government data breach, escalating their risk. They seek protection under schemes for Afghan allies but face delays and refusals. Human rights advocates warn of reprisals from the Taliban. The son pleads, "We will not survive," urging urgent intervention. This is Laura Navarro for Neural Newscast.
A look at environmental news and issues. Arctic glaciers are suffering from warming and microbial blooms that accelerate ice melt. Scientists warn of terminal decline. Here's Amelia Richardson with more.
Arctic glaciers enter a terminal decline as warming accelerates melt and microbes speed it up. In Svalbard, record summer heat turns ice surfaces into dark, slushy zones, where microbial blooms lower reflectivity and absorb more sunlight. Glaciologist Dr. Arwin Edwards reports torrents of meltwater and rockfall during recent fieldwork, calling the scene really scary. Scientists race to document these fragile ecosystems before they vanish. The stakes are global. Faster ice loss raises sea levels, disrupts ocean circulation, and reshapes Arctic habitats.
A marine heat wave is bleaching corals across Western Australia, threatening fisheries, tourism, and reef recovery. Here's Stephen Summers with more.
A record marine heat wave is killing coral across a 1,500-kilometer stretch of Western Australia's coast. Scientists say it is one of the longest and most intense heat stress events ever recorded. Reefs that once escaped the worst of warming now bleach en masse, including areas considered global hope spots. The damage threatens fisheries, tourism, and coastal protection. Researchers warn repeated heat waves reduce recovery and push reefs toward collapse. They call for rapid emissions cuts and stronger local protections to give surviving corals a chance. This is Stephen Summers for Neural Newscast.
For economic analysis, here's what's new. Experts say hands-off investing, index funds, and patience often outperforms active trading for most long-term investors. Here's Ethan Wells with more.
Hands-off investing delivers the best results for most people. Experts point to low-cost index funds for stocks and bonds, paired with patience. Set a target mix, like 60% stocks, 40% bonds, and rebalance once or twice a year. Avoid chasing hot trends or timing the market. Fees matter. A 1% annual fee can cut long-term gains by tens of thousands of dollars. Automate contributions, use tax-advantaged accounts, and let compounding work. As one advisor says, your portfolio grows when you stop fiddling with it.
Stocks continue rising as earnings and bets on lower borrowing costs sustain market optimism, analysts say. Here's Cassandra Joyce with more.
Stocks keep climbing as earnings beat expectations and borrowing costs look set to fall. Investors point to strong corporate profits, mostly steady tariff rates, and growing bets on interest rate cuts this year. Lower rates typically boost valuations and make equities more attractive than bonds. Solid balance sheets and resilient consumer spending help support the rally. Risks remain. Persistent inflation or new trade tensions could dent momentum. But for now, the market's tone stays upbeat as companies guide higher and policymakers signal patience. This is Cassandra Joyce for Neural Newscast.
Fast, reliable, and powered by the future today. This is Neural Newscast. Catch every episode at nnewscast.com.
The latest from the world of innovation. Apple says its new AI efforts may become one of the most profound technologies of our lifetime, Tim Cook says. Here's Kara Swift with more.
Apple CEO Tim Cook says Apple is developing one of the most profound technologies of our lifetime. He points to artificial intelligence woven across the company's products and services. Cook emphasizes on device AI for privacy and speed and cloud support when needed. He highlights Apple's custom silicon, which powers features like image processing and voice assistance. Investors watch for new AI capabilities in iPhone and Mac updates later this year. Cook frames the effort as long-term with health, accessibility, and productivity benefits.
New AI-powered stuffed animals chat with children, raising questions about privacy and screen alternatives. Here's Benjamin Carter with more.
Stuffed animals now talk back. Toy makers roll out AI-powered plush companions, some for kids as young as 3. The bots chat, tell stories, and remember preferences, pitching themselves as a healthier alternative to screens, and sometimes to busy parents. Built-in microphones and cloud models power conversations. The promise? Comfort and learning. The concern? Privacy and over-reliance. Parents face a new choice at playtime: cuddles, code, or both. This is Benjamin Carter for Neural Newscast.
Updates on medicine and wellness are next. Female athletes say menstrual cycles substantially affect training, performance, and injury risk, experts note. Here's Isabella Wright with more.
Periods have a massive impact on female athletes, and many still train through pain and fatigue. Olympic sprint cyclist Sophie Capewell says cramps, low energy, and disrupted sleep can derail performance and recovery. The human cost is real: missed sessions, higher injury risk, and quiet worry about judgment. Teams increasingly track cycles, adjust intensity, and plan nutrition with iron, hydration, and recovery days. Capewell urges open talk and flexible coaching. Listen to your body. Support and planning help women stay fast and healthy.
Scientists report a cancer-killing virus becomes more effective when protected by bacteria, potentially improving treatments. Here's Natalie Quinn with more.
Scientists report a promising boost for cancer care. They find a cancer-killing virus works better when shielded by helpful bacteria. The bacteria act like armor, helping the virus reach tumors and survive the body's defenses. That could mean stronger results with lower doses and fewer side effects. Patients might see shorter treatment times and less fatigue. One researcher calls it a delivery upgrade that targets tumors more precisely. Trials are early, but the approach builds on existing, approved virus therapies. This is Natalie Quinn for Neural Newscast.
From the Science Desk, here's what's new. Astronomers detect the oldest fast radio burst yet, offering clues about early star formation and hidden gas. Here's Nathaniel Cohen with more.
Astronomers detect the oldest fast radio burst yet, dating to about 3 billion years after the Big Bang. The flash travels across vast gas clouds, revealing hidden matter in the early universe. Its dispersion and brightness map how much gas lies between distant galaxies. Researchers use that signal to probe when and where the first generations of stars form. The result helps calibrate cosmic models and timelines. One scientist calls it a lighthouse from cosmic dawn, guiding future radio surveys. This is Nathaniel Cohen for Neural Newscast.
Urgent news from the Breaking Desk. A British court sentences a violent gang after a spree of attempted murder and arson. Judges say public safety is paramount. Here's Lydia Holmes with more.
A British court jails an out-of-control gang for attempted murder and arson after a violent spree. Prosecutors say the group leaves one man in a coma and nearly severs another victim's hand. Judges cite multiple coordinated attacks, including firebombings that endanger homes and bystanders. Sentences aim to protect the public and deter copycats. Police urge victims to come forward, saying, "We will pursue violent offenders." This is Lydia Holmes for Neural Newscast.
A closer look at policy and politics. Democratic governors are taking prominent roles fighting redistricting efforts tied to former President Trump's political goals. Here's Madeline Cooper with more.
Democratic governors stepped to the front in the fight over congressional maps, challenging former President Donald Trump's push to expand Republican seats. In several states, governors back lawsuits or veto maps they call partisan, arguing fair districts protect voter choice. Others keep a lower profile, focusing on budgets and schools. Republicans counter that Democrats attempt map rigging of their own and say legislatures should decide boundaries. Redistricting remains part of ongoing debates over voting rights, state power, and who controls the House in 2024 and beyond. This is Madeline Cooper for Neural Newscast.
Tech stories shaping our future. Apple's AI push emphasizes on-device privacy and performance, CEO Tim Cook says, promising long-term benefits across products. Here's Amelia Richardson with more.
Apple's CEO Tim Cook says Apple is developing one of the most profound technologies of our lifetime. He points to artificial intelligence woven across the company's products and services. Cook emphasizes on-device AI for privacy and speed, and cloud support when needed. He highlights Apple's custom silicon, which powers features like image processing and voice assistance. Investors watch for new AI capabilities in iPhone and Mac updates later this year. Cook frames the effort as long-term, with health, accessibility, and productivity benefits. This is Amelia Richardson for Neural Newscast.
Here's another story we're following. That concludes our headlines for this hour. For fuller coverage and updates, visit neuralnewscast.com and follow us across podcast platforms.
From daily summaries to deep storytelling, Neural Newscast keeps you informed. Visit neuralnewscast.com for more ways to listen and explore. Neural Newscast merges real and AI-generated voices to ensure rapid, high-quality news production. Our content is created using advanced AI models and rigorously reviewed by humans for accuracy and fairness. Despite efforts to prevent AI errors, occasional inaccuracies may occur. We encourage listeners to cross-check critical details with trusted sources. Read about our AI transparency at nnewscast.com.